Welcome to Tom Myers versus the rest of the world. This is 2022 Best of and Unheard Bits, Part 4. In this episode, we will hear more of our favorite moments, plus some more bits that didn't quite make the initial airings. Joining me tonight are Jeff Hyson, Abby Mello, Michelle Wojciechowski, Gina Brown, Devine Kerr, Casey McNeil, Joshua Postel, David Kay, Ward Morrow, Valerie Pascal, Greg Kay, and Joe Gorman. The Supreme Court denied Donald Trump's request to review a lower court's ruling barring a special master to look at the documents seized at Mar-a-Lago. This is the same special master who refused to do exactly what Trump wanted. Now they ruled Lindsey Graham has to testify as to what he knew about efforts to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. You have to feel sorry for Trump's legal team. It's a living hell. It must be like being Jamal Khashoggi as you're being cut apart by the bone saw, and the perpetrator doesn't realize that you aren't quite dead. During the Pennsylvania Senate debate, Republican candidate Dr. Mehmet Oz said that decisions on a woman's health care should be made by a woman, her doctor, and a local elected official. Keeping that in mind and considering that I live in a Republican county, I can think of a number of my local elected officials who I want to clean up after my next colonoscopy. Ted Cruz was booed by Yankee fans while watching the Houston Astros win the American League Championship and go to the World Series. Another reason I hate Ted Cruz. He makes me cheer for Yankees fans. Trump supporting author Nick Adams said that if he was an NFL coach, then his playbook would be the Bible. I would look forward to watching him and his team get stoned to death for working on Sundays. Donald Trump announced that he would be running for president in 2024. His announcement was so pathetic and so lauded. It was like watching an aging televangelist raising money. The only difference being Trump hasn't banged as many porn stars. The Senate voted to move a bill codifying same-sex marriage into law on the floor of the Senate. This is right before we started recording. All 50 Democrats were joined by 12 Republicans who reasoned they could support this bill given the many wet dreams they've had about Ronald Reagan over the years. So the 2022 midterms are over, and it appears as though the red wave that we were promised didn't materialize. In fact, the only fringe conservative to create a bigger red wave was Timothy McVeigh. The only person to be photographed with Donald Trump to spill a bunch of red was O.J. Simpson. Soon. Meanwhile, I'm proud of what we did in Maryland. We elected a governor, lieutenant governor, comptroller, and attorney general, none of whom are white men. Okay, we sent one old white guy back to the U.S. Senate, but okay, baby steps. And we legalized weed in Maryland. Weed is going to be legal in Maryland. And it's great because the competition will drive down the price of heroin. The United States beat Iran 1-0 in the World Cup. So that means they go through to the 16-team elimination round. The Iran players went ahead and sang the national anthem before the game. So that means the Iran players were able to avoid a second elimination. The United States moves on to take on the Netherlands. So it's going to be interesting. It will be a country who in its very recent history was overrun by Nazis, taking on the Netherlands. Donald Trump, on his Truth Social account, advocated for the termination of parts of the Constitution. That word termination is the key because now we know that Trump thinks life begins at conception and ends at 235 years of age. The Trump Organization was convicted on multiple counts of tax fraud. As punishment, I think the executives involved in that scheme from Donald Trump on down should be forced to live and sleep in the lobby of Trump Tower while enduring New York comics barking, handing out flyers for their comedy shows, and recording their podcasts there. While at the same time, a bachelorette party takes place. Raphael Warnock won his re-election campaign for the U.S. Senate in the Georgia special election this week. The losing candidate, Herschel Walker, gave a speech that night where he didn't actually concede, but he did acknowledge that the campaign was over. It'll be interesting to see his campaign staff not telling him that he lost, but sending him to various strip clubs and just calling it campaigning. Joel Greenberg, the former associate of Congressman Matt Gaetz, was sentenced to 11 years in prison for sex trafficking. The judge would have given him anywhere from 15 to 17 years, but he didn't want Greenberg to hear 15 to 17 years and pop a hard on in court. In addition to the background about the teams and the stats, every World Cup features some kind of underlying social issue. This year, with Iran's entry, it was about their treatment of women, and some of the players on Team USA, such as Tyler Adams in this clip, are ready with responses about their criticisms of Iran's governmental policies.
This question is for you. My name is Mila Javamardi from Press TV. First of all, you say you support the Iranian people, but you're pronouncing our country's name wrong. Our country is named Iran, not Iran. Please, once and for all, let's get this clear. Second of all, are you okay to be representing a country that has so much discrimination against black people in its own borders? And we saw the Black Lives Matter movement over the past few years. Are you okay to be representing the US? Meanwhile, there's so much discrimination happening against black people in America.
My apologies on the mispronunciation of your country. Yeah, that being said, you know, there's discrimination everywhere you go. You know, one thing that I've learned, especially from living abroad in the past years and having to fit in different cultures and kind of assimilate into different cultures, is that in the U.S. we're continuing to make progress every single day. You know, growing up for me, I grew up in a white family with obviously an African American heritage and background as well. So I had a little bit of different cultures, and I was very easily able to assimilate in different cultures. So you know, not everyone has that ease and the ability to do that, and obviously it takes longer to understand. And through education, I think it's super important. Like you just educated me now on the pronunciation of your country. So. Yeah, it's a process. I think as long as you see progress, that's the most important thing.
I mean, I thought that was an awesome response, like given like the way that reporter came at him. It's like with all the stuff they've done, it was the pronunciation of the country's name that they got upset. It would be like, you know, if I was a serial killer, that's a stretch, I know, and I went into court and I was upset because they kept misspelling my surname in the papers.
No, I agree with you. I think his response was perfect. And you know, the reporter was clearly trying to bait him into saying something, you know, maybe a little off the cuff, or you know, but he was measured in his response. He you know, apologized. First thing he did was apologize for pronouncing the country's name wrong. And I mean, that shows contrition, and I don't know, shows a lot of maturity for somebody so young. So yeah, I thought that was just as good of a response as you can possibly have. And he's not wrong. I mean, you know, everywhere you look, we kind of talked about this a little earlier, just like everywhere you look, every sport, there's going to be some kind of issue that needs, you know, somebody's going to have to address. And so he did I think a fantastic job doing that.
You know, if he said, I see the ball, I kick the ball, and if mistakes were made, do you know how hard the ball is when it hits my head? And that would have been a satisfactory answer, but he went above and beyond there, and I don't know if he was prepped for that, but well done.
There's no way he was prepped for that, because that was a gotcha question. And in the middle of that question, the second bit about, well, what about America and the discrimination? You can see the New York in his eyes just switch on and go, oh, you're trying to trap me. I see what you're doing. And that man is 23 years old, 23, and he's giving those answers. I mean, we know men who are 23 years old because they do comedy. They can barely brush their teeth. And he's like avoiding a geopolitical disaster.
It was also a really great sidestep, because he didn't say, his answer wasn't, I love America and I, you know, like I'm proud to be from there. And, you know, like he didn't take the bait. And he also didn't throw America under the bus. He had a very measured answer based on his life experiences and also subtly twisted the knife about, the final sentence was something along the lines of, as long as you're seeing progress, that's what matters, which is a stab at Iran, obviously, because they are moving backwards. So it was both diplomatic, didn't throw anybody under the bus, was, slightly patriotic, and was like, I'm going to use your own words against you, or your own concept against you. It was brilliant. You couldn't have scripted it.
And it's so smart, especially because I've seen the camera cut to him on the field. It's very different what you see coming out of his mouth once he started playing.
Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate from Georgia, Herschel Walker, said that 70% of the drugs brought in from outside the U.S. go through Atlanta. That would explain why so many of my comedian and entertainer friends want to move there. It would also explain Nick DiPaolo's rants on his podcast. I always feel sorry for Herschel Walker's supporters because they never know if the next email asking for money is going to be for his campaign or his child support payments. I never understood people who complain about making child support payments. Hey, at least they're getting laid. There's just no pleasing some people. Herschel Walker probably took Bill Cosby literally when he told his kids, I brought you into this world and I can take you out. In this clip, we get a look into Herschel Walker's mindset as he addresses the environmental concerns of his constituents.
That he got rid of the pipeline. Get rid of the pipeline. Get rid of our energy. Start this downfall. Because we need energy for everything. Do y'all know that? And they were talking about the Green New Deal. Climate change. I'm going to help y'all with that real quickly. And I'm going to do it in the Wrightsville way so you can understand what I'm saying. We, in America, have some of the cleanest air and cleanest water of anybody in the world. So what we do is we're going to put from the Green New Deal millions or billions of dollars cleaning our good air up. So all of a sudden China and India ain't putting nothing in there cleaning that situation up. So all that bad air is still there. But since we don't control the air, our good air decided to float over to China, bad air. So when China gets our good air, their bad air gotta move. So it moves over to our good air space. And now we gotta clean that back up.
I think the NFL could take that video and show it to their medical staff and say, look, this is why we need a stronger concussion protocol.
I will note for the people not watching the aforementioned video feed that he didn't have a badge on.
Plain clothes.
So let me get this straight. I'm trying to follow Herschel's math on this. Okay?
No, don't.
China, okay, gets pushed over here, and all our good air gets pushed over there.
Yeah.
And so
like a giant fart cloud.
So that means that the world does not have a climate problem.
Right.
Because the bad air comes from someplace else. So, that's not our problem. Okay.
And people were laughing because they thought he was making a joke about climate change. No, that's his
No, that's what he believes.
I can imagine everybody in the crowds turning to each other and going, wait, we're supporting this guy, right? This isn't like a candidates forum? Or...
Did you guys know we need energy for everything? Did you know that?
I didn't know that, Casey. I was really glad to find out from him. Yeah.
We also need vitamin D, apparently.
And what was this? He says 70% of the drugs, what?
70% of the drugs, he said, came through Atlanta.
Oh, and that's according to his dealer?
Oh. With the most recent election occurring in Florida, it is apparently a great time to live there. Unless, of course, you're a woman, you're black, you're a migrant, you're an asylum seeker, you're gay, you're trans, or you're a high school student who wants to wear a face mask to protect himself from COVID. Other than that, Florida is now a paradise. In the early In the early days of his first campaign for governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis read Donald Trump's policy statements to his kids like he was reading a bedtime story. Personally, I would rather have a drag queen read to mine. In this video posted by his wife, the facepalm factor increases exponentially, especially as a religious component to his platform is added.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a protector. So God made a fighter. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, kiss his family goodbye, travel thousands of miles for no other reason than to serve the people, to save their jobs, their livelihoods, their liberty, their happiness. So God made a fighter. God said, I need someone to be strong, advocate truth in the midst of hysteria, someone who challenges conventional wisdom and isn't afraid to defend what he knows to be right and just. So God made a fighter. God said, I need somebody who will take the arrows, stand firm in the wake of unrelenting attacks, look a mother in the eyes and tell her that her child will be in school. She can keep her job, go to church, eat dinner with friends, and hold the hand of an aging parent taking their breath for the last time. So God made a fighter. God said, I need a family man. A man who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his daughter says she wants to spend her life doing what Dad does. So God made a fighter.
I think the only part of that ad where DeSantis shows he has any connection with the people of his state is the part about people taking their last breath, because that's is moving to Florida is the one step you have to take in order to do that, it seems.
I've done almost every show of this podcast, and that was the worst video you've ever shown. And in the middle of it, I was thinking, doesn't Tom have a Ben Shapiro video to show instead?
That would only be slightly less nauseating.
Yes.
Good God.
Add to that the fact that the announcer in that video sounds like, Paul Harvey if he were resurrected from the dead and he was just loaded with methamphetamines.
And it was a weird description, like God sent a protector. He'll laugh and then sigh. I never seen a strong dude do.
Right.
That's what
And I love it that it was on the 8th day. There really is only 7 that we speak of, and then it begins 1 again. Like it's not like there was this extra added day in the week specifically for fighter DeSantis. So.
Yeah. No, note to Christians: stop riffing on the OG version of the Bible. That's my people's book. We're gonna, do we have to sue you guys? Do we have to come on for copyright infringement?
Well, I guess we like to say we have the whole book. You just didn't finish the other part.
Is it possible?
Yeah, you guys. My only response is you guys can't even get the original part right.
We can't.
Nobody's getting anything right. Even No Nut November is stupid. You guys want to know why? You know how you get prostate cancer?
No.
By not nutting enough.
Oh, you gotta nut.
Absolutely.
When you don't use your prostate, that's when you have cancer. So you don't nut to aware. It didn't make no sense.
Yeah,
Even that whole month.
Sense. It's not healthy.
Why do you think I take so many breaks during this show?
Exactly. Stay healthy, Tom.
Oh,
Yeah.
No.
Sorry, DeSantis kind of inspired us this thing.
The surest sign that Republican and even the more right-leaning independent voters were not hip to a 2024 Trump campaign was the results of this past midterm cycle. And this report from a TV station in Michigan goes into finer detail.
There are people who believe in Donald Trump and his message wholeheartedly. Then there are people like Rob Cordes who make a living off former President Trump.
The America First agenda is my life and business right now, yes.
He, for one, would be thrilled to throw his support behind yet another run for the White House.
He's just a wonderful person, and he cares about the people, and he doesn't need the political money. He doesn't need the job. He just wants to make a better life for his children and grandchildren, and the American people, which are all we the people.
Other lifelong Republicans say the Trump messaging has grown stale as of late.
If it's more of the same, I think he's got a big problem on his hands, and I expect more of the same, but we'll see what happens.
While some feel the recent election was an indicator that the country is willing to move on.
We saw it here in Michigan, where we had the three of our statewide nominees, the governor, attorney general, and secretary of state, all endorsed by President Trump and all lost by large margins.
And maybe the party should get behind someone else.
He's still a formidable force. There's no doubt about that within the party. But there are other people who are beginning to eclipse, and I think primarily Governor DeSantis of Florida and Governor Youngkin of Virginia, which are the two that he has singled out for attack.
Others feel that Trump is simply consistent in his messaging.
President Trump fixed everything. He had the economy in America going great, and the world was on the target of success. And what did Biden do in his administration? Let's reverse everything that Trump did, and now everything's gone down the hill.
In the end, those who support the Republican policy say it's really two sides of the same coin.
We want to start winning again. We want to start winning all over the place, and I think it's going to take somebody new, but let's hear what he has to say.
And we need to all work together, unite, get behind positive messages, make Michigan a better place and America a better place.
There was something really interesting about that first guy in the first segment when he was talking, after he said he's a wonderful person or something like that. And he said, all he's trying to do is essentially make money and pass it on to his children and grandchildren. And isn't that what we're all trying to do? And what I think is important to note about that is truly, I'm not trying to be too serious because obviously that's hilarious in and of itself, but the in-group collectivism that is in that is that as a president, he should be trying to make everyone's situation better, not his children and his children's children and that guy's children and that guy's children's children. Right. Your job is to make everyone, regardless of what they look like and who they are, make their lives better. If that and he hit the nail on the head. He was like, the guy doesn't even really want to be president. He just wants to make his life better for his kids. It's not what we all want. Right. That's not what a president should want.
No.
How do you do that as a president? Do you collect intelligence and sell it to the highest bidder so you have money to give your kids? I mean, I don't think that's what you want in the president. Or come to my hotel and maybe you'll have a treaty, maybe I'll give you some money. I mean, this is not what you want in a president. I think back, I remember as a kid growing up and hearing John Kennedy calling us to our better angels, stuff like that, and that's what this was all about. That's what government was about. And then you hear this guy, it's like, oh, no, you just want to make money any way you can for your kids and to hell with the environment and everybody else. None of that matters. You just make your money.
Well, according to QAnon, Kennedy's son is supposed to come back from the dead and be Trump's running mate. So, consideration always skips a generation. Those kind of traits always do. You know what they say.
Also, I kind of spaced out on the second guy, but did his shirt say Team Roe? Because I know it didn't say like V Wade on the back. Like,
no.
It did. It did. That's interesting that he.
Right.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's fitting. He was a moderate Republican. I don't know if he planned that, but
going back to having making money for your kids and their grandkids, I'm sure some of the secret documents they found at Mar-a-Lago had little Post-it notes that were like for the college fund for one of the grandchildren. This should go for that. This should go for a new Mercedes. This will
Melania's third boob job. That's here.
Right.
His wife's facelift. Sorry.
for years, it has seemed that companies have been making decisions about product development and marketing without any consideration for the wishes of the consumer. In this YouTube video, a man takes to the platform to express his dismay about the cancellation of his favorite alcoholic beverage.
Y'all wanted a rant. All right. I got something good to rant about now. Budweiser, in its infinite wisdom, decided to stop making Bud Dry, period, forever. All I got to say is y'all's marketing department sucks. It fucking sucks, boy. If you was in charge of marketing, why didn't you market it better to where it sell better? I drink it. There's a whole website devoted to Bud Dry and why is it gone? What's wrong with you fucking people? God damn it, I'm pissed off to the highest level of festivity, boy. I hope your head falls off. The little one first and then the big one. And we just play basketball with them. It's the big head anyway. They kick the fuck out of it. Non-union bunch of motherfuckers. Yeah, I was loyal to Anheuser-Busch. And what did I get? A slap in the goddamn face. You non-union bunch of motherfuckers, and I choke the piss out of you. Oh. And have yourself a merry little Christmas. Boy!
Like, I've seen people who just caught their spouses cheating on them who weren't as upset as that.
I really like that he is 100% confident that the beer is exquisite and it's the fault of the marketing. There's no other reason. It's not the rise of craft beers or different types of beers, or maybe this beer isn't as good as that beer, or maybe Budweiser is trying to cut back on the number of brands, which happens. No, it was the marketing. That shows confidence in
the lack of unions, Jeff.
Yes, that's
but the blame where the blame is due. Marketing, lack of
I love that
unions.
I love that he's pro-union. Of course, he loves an American beer like Budweiser. That's as American as protesting an American beer is that being upset that they're discontinuing Budweiser Dry.
Before we go, my final thought. It was my pleasure to lead this panel discussion on what may very well be the final episode of this podcast before fascism puts its boot on the neck of democracy, thus rendering all critical thinking and therefore satire meaningless and entirely redundant. For what good is it making a remark about the head of a new fascistic American state when instead of a drunk heckle, the offending jokester is dragged to the gallows and hung in the presence of his fellow bunkmates in the new labor camps? They witness this knowing at least your execution will be a reprieve from their duties of cleaning out the porta-johns at the various traveling MAGA rally circuses that show up near their encampments. There is a sign of hope. One day, they are promised by their overlords, they will be given a brush to scrub out the fecal remains of the rally attendees. But until then, we can think of the relatively happy times that we now have. We can still celebrate momentous occasions. For example, we can start celebrating No Shave November, which, in addition to helping raise awareness for prostate cancer, has the added benefit of a month of repose from your significant other saying you need to manscape. It's also No Nut November, which must be very difficult if you're forced to get together with your relatives at Thanksgiving and you're really into incest. Who says I can't make a lighthearted sentiment out of a potentially gloomy future for this country? That's right, everyone. Good night. This episode was written and hosted by Tom Myers with panelists Jeff Hyson, Abby Mello, Michelle Wojciechowski, Gina Brown, Devine Kerr, Casey McNeil, Joshua Postel, David Kay, Ward Morrow, Valerie Pascal, Greg Kay, and Joe Gorman. Theme music composed and arranged by Jeroen Vandenhurek. Executive producers Tom Myers, Matt Connarton for ipmNation, and Eddie Carson for Odyssey Radio. Please leave a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast's Patreon for extended episodes, bonus clips, and more. Thank you for listening, and please visit tommyers.us.